Originally, this video was going to be about who I thought the Eagles locker room snitch was. I was going to go through all of the situations in which an anonymous source spoke negatively towards another player or the team to the media. However, the majority of the fan base now thinks that they know who the snitch in the locker room is. So honestly, no matter who I really think it is, it doesn't really matter because the media and the fans have already made up their minds. Okay, so the locker room snitch is...
that no good neighborhood bully and thief, Red Herring.
Just kidding. The majority of the fan base and the media say that they already know that the person that is going to people like Josina Anderson and Joseph Santoliquito is none other than starting wide receiver Alshon Jeffrey. Now here's the thing, I don't know 100% for certain that it is or isn't him. I seem to waver every time I see different reports about the guy. Sources say that Alshon Jeffrey wants out of Philadelphia, but then again, his agent claims that this isn't true. Nowadays, popular media figures no longer tell the truth. They just rile people up to get the fans on their side, and then fans, partially including myself, bought into it hook, line, and sinker. This smells so badly of that one time that Philadelphia provocateur Elliot Shore Parks accused Deshaun Jackson of being in a gang, which later got the star receiver released from the team in the spring of 2014. On the other hand, it is hard to ignore what Alshon Jeffrey is accused of. So what is Alshon Jeffrey accused of saying? Was it bad? How do we know it could have been him? Are the fans correct in going after him for his alleged comments? And finally, what should the Eagles do about it? Well, first things first, Alshon Jeffrey is accused of going to the media anonymously 3 times. First time was before a Monday Night Football game against the crumbling Redskins in Week 12 of the 2018 season. Carson Wentz was accused by an unknown source on the team that he targeted Zach Ertz too much. This was according to ESPN's Josina Anderson, and while it is true that he was, that wasn't necessarily a bad thing. Zach Ertz was a Pro Bowler, and he passed Jason Witten on the all-time list of most catches by a tight end in a season. I don't know if this got to Carson Wentz because he ended up forcing a pass in the end zone intended for Alshon Jeffrey, which was intercepted by Redskins cornerback Josh Norman. The Eagles would win the game, and while the Eagles would go to the playoffs, they would do so with backup quarterback Nick Foles, as Carson Wentz was benched because of a back injury. Speaking of injury, Josina Anderson was the same reporter that has consistently been accused by the fans of using Alshon Jeffrey in order to bash Eagles quarterback Carson Wentz. After she made a comment about Carson Wentz's concussion that was sustained against the Seahawks, Eagles fans put her on notice. Even former defensive end Chris Long warned the Eagles players on Twitter that players should watch out for her in the locker room, especially after she came out with a report mid-season that an anonymous source had accused the Eagles offense of being too complex and that Carson Wentz needed to check the ball down more after a tough loss against the Vikings. One of the reasons why the Eagles fans might have thought it might have been Alshon was because he caught a pass along the sideline during the game and could have ran it in for a touchdown, but instead walked out of bounds. Fans also noticed his lack of intensity as evidence that he no longer wanted to play with Carson Wentz. After fans accused Alshon, Anderson tweeted that Alshon has no knowledge of who I spoke to. However, this isn't a denial that it was the Eagles receiver and smells of word jumble because she could have just tweeted it wasn't Alshon Jeffrey that was the anonymous source. Alshon Jeffrey would end the season on the injury list and the Eagles would power ahead to the playoffs. The final situation that we will discuss was a situation that occurred on Martin Luther King's birthday to begin 2019. A reporter named Joseph Santoliquito wrote an article detailing that an anonymous player had called Carson Wentz selfish, egotistical, a bad teammate, and a bully. Eagles fans ripped into Santoliquito, whom never gave the team any chance to respond to the accusations, and many just passed this off as fake news. Many teammates came to Carson Wentz's defense, but missing were defenses by his wide receivers. People refused to believe it was Alshon Jeffrey because he was seen at a Sixers game with Carson Wentz and they were both smiling. So it couldn't have been Alshon Jeffrey, right? So Eagles fans did what they usually do and blamed Nelson Agholor. I am less inclined to believe that Alshon Jeffrey was the anonymous source here, but if he is the anonymous source for the other events, then he could be the anonymous source here. Carson Wentz didn't deny possibly being a bad teammate or selfish and promised to improve, but he outwardly denied being a bully. Now, do I think what Alshon Jeffrey is accused of is bad? Yes and no. No, because if he has a grievance, he is allowed to say it, and if what Santoliquito claims that Carson Wentz controls the team with an iron fist and is untouchable, and every single person who opposes him gets cut is true, then he would have nowhere else to go but to the media, anonymously. However, it isn't right because it would actually make him a bad teammate for not going to Carson Wentz because he appears to be a nice guy. If you can't coexist with a nice guy like him, then that speaks very badly towards you as a person. Now, I don't think it is right to just go after the guy with just accusations, but I can't stop the rage of Eagles fans. They are going to say whatever they are going to say, even if there is proof to the contrary. Finally, what are the Eagles going to do with Alshon Jeffrey? He is making $26 million over the next 2 seasons and would be a terrible cap hit if he is released. On the other hand, with him recovering from a Liz Frank injury, he probably wouldn't play until mid-season if he actually did come back. The Eagles made a lot of good strides with Greg Ward, Robert Davis, and Deontay Burnett at wide receiver to end the 2019 season. With Deshaun Jackson hopefully back in the lineup, that could add talent to the position. If the rumors are true that Alshon can't coexist with Carson Wentz, I wish him nothing but the best and I hope he can go to a place that he actually wants to go. However, if he can't coexist with a class act like Carson Wentz, I don't see him succeeding anywhere else. I don't see a team trading for him, especially with the rumors that he is the Alshonanonymous source. I would like Alshon Jeffrey to stay, if he can play, but I don't want him with the Eagles if he is actually the locker room problem. And if the report about Alshon Jeffrey and another teammate having to be separated in the locker room over the leaks is true, no matter what he has done for the team. If he is the snitch, then he has lost my trust completely, and I will have no choice but to say goodbye and wish him nothing but the best for his future plans.
Going for it all into the end zone, and it is Alshon Jeffrey for the touchdown.
Little surprise, falls.